Well, hello and welcome to this, the first in what we hope is a regular series of podcasts or talking to folk from around the region about how life is for them at the moment. I'm Fiona Thompson and I am chair of RTS Yorkshire, and I'm delighted today to be talking today with Anna Hall, who's creative director at Candour Productions. So Anna, thank you for joining us for this, our very first attempt at doing this sort of thing.
My pleasure.
I hope all is well with you and yours.
Yes, thank you. All is well. I think we've been in lockdown for about 7 weeks now as a family. So my 3 student children have arrived back, and everybody's eating a lot. I seem to be going to the supermarket a lot.
I think that's the case for all of us. As long as we're social distancing, it's all fine. But
that's right. Yeah.
Home. You got the family.
Got the family home. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. So talking about your other family, Candour Pictures, now on the 6th of April, I think it was, your film, A Day in the Life of Coronavirus Britain, went out on Channel 4. And just to tell people, it is still available on all 4 and you should go and watch it. This was filmed in one day on the 3rd of April, I understand it. And you received about 3,000 clips and then had to be edited over a weekend. That's a tough call, especially as you're someone who takes time to really work through your programs. I must stop waving my arms about, it doesn't look very good. So talk us through it then, Anna. How did this commission come about?
So for us as a team, so at Candour, we have got a team of about 10 people, and, you know, we've got producers on staff. And when we knew that, you know, obviously CV-19 was hitting, we do a lot for Channel 4 Current Affairs, and we were asked to, you know, see if we could, you know, come up with some really fast turnaround films. And so, you know, like everybody, we were thinking about how on earth would we do it, and, you know, what would we do? We pitched something in about the NHS, you know, so we pitched in quite a lot of ideas very quickly. And Louisa Compton, who was commissioning for the fast turnaround Corona stuff, came back and said, I really like the idea of doing something in a day. So we'd been talking about Ridley Scott's film, and, you know, could you do something which captures Britain? And, you know, so for us, that is a challenge, because I think as a company, we are known for making, you know, difficult films that we film over a longish period of time. And so we were excited. We got the commission. We had 2.5 weeks to prepare everything. And the day that we got the commission, we were still actually in the office, and we all looked at each other and we just thought, we're going to have to go home immediately, because if any of us get this, you know, if any of us get CV-19, we're not going to make this work as a team. So we sort of evacuated the building really quickly. And then we sort of, you know, reconvened on Zoom later in the afternoon. And, you know, the thing that's extraordinary about this film is that we made it on Zoom and WhatsApp. That's how we made this film. We were never, ever in the same room as a production team thinking and talking about, you know, ideas and what we were going to do. So, you know, I think for any company, the thought of turning around a film in that, you know, we had 2.5 weeks to get it ready. Louisa came back to us and said, do you think you could film it one day and edit the next? And I was like, no, we cannot do that, Louisa. We definitely will die if we do that. So I was just looking at the dates, and I thought, actually, we could do it over a weekend, because we can probably, you know, if post houses were busy, you know, none of us really knew what the situation with post houses was going to be. But obviously I knew that if we were going to edit something that quickly, we would need, you know, we'd need somewhere to go where we could turn that amount of material around really, really quickly. So we went to talk to The Other Planet in Leeds, and they were still open, and they were great. And they said, yeah, we can accommodate you over a weekend. So it seemed to make sense to film on a Friday and then to get it ready for Monday night. So in terms of what did Louisa like about our pitch, she loved the idea that this was everyone's experience, and how could we just capture, you know, what was happening to the world in Britain, right around the UK. And so what we did was I decided that I sort of did have a game plan in my head for my vision for the film. So obviously, you know, within a day period, you're going through the 24-hour clock, aren't you? So, you know, we were just then starting to really brainstorm as a team what we would do, you know, what morning would look like, what you know, what waking up would look like. Then as you kind of go through the day, what happens. And then there are sort of, you know, obviously there were kind of key points in the day. So getting up, milkman, farmer, you know, that kind of a thing. And then, you know, shopkeeper. So we tried all the big supermarket chains, as I'm sure many production companies have, you know, approached all of the big supermarket chains. We did all of that. Everybody said no. So, you know, we would have daily production meetings on Zoom. And we basically had a kind of a wish list. We had a shopping list of things that we absolutely wanted to try and get in the film. And, you know, we then just worked, you know, tremendously hard to try and see, you know, in terms of contacts and all that kind of thing. So we did a lot of pre-planning, and I decided that I suppose the challenge for a film like that is that you think, you know, I just didn't want it to look like one great big long YouTube clip. And so as a director, I really wanted it to have a feel about it. I wanted it to be able to try and capture, you know, the kind of the madness that's going on in people's houses versus, you know, outside it's a very quiet world, isn't it? And, you know, it's so shocking. So we wanted to capture the world look like around the country. And you know, we really, you know, obviously we're Northern based production company, but we really wanted it to reflect the UK. And so, you know, we set up PDs in different parts of the country. So we had a PD in Glasgow, we had a PD in Northern Ireland, we had someone in Wales and Bristol, we had someone in East Anglia. So we wanted to really try and reflect the fact that this was the whole of Britain, not just, you know, a pocket of the M25. Obviously that's my normal little bugbear. So we did a combination of, you know, I wanted to try and shoot some stuff. And then we wanted to, we tried to be quite focused with the general public on what we were looking for. So as soon as we started sort of tweeting out, you know, we want people, film yourselves getting up, film yourselves having breakfast, film yourselves cleaning your teeth, you know, all the sorts of things that people who are not filmmakers might not think of doing. But of course, for us, those are really valuable shots, aren't they? So, you know, film yourself, you know, how do you get in the shower? How do you turn the tap on? Those kind of things. And we, you know, we put a list up of actually how to do it. So obviously the other thing is that, you know, when you're shooting on your iPhone or your phone, your normal reaction is to shoot portrait, isn't it? And so we were trying to tell people shoot landscape, and so we did a mix, you know, of setting stuff up that I knew that I wanted and that I knew that then I could kind of bank on as scenes or things that would be shot really beautifully. And then, you know, we were you know, I suppose the greatest, there is sort of, in terms of the logistics of how you plan this, there are a number of massive fears that you have, aren't there? So, you know, one, how on earth are we going to get all this material into any kind of form where we can see it? How is that system not going to crash? And that was my biggest fear, was that, you know, we'd put this call out for clips to come in, and then I was terrified that the whole thing was just going to crash and people weren't going to be able to upload. And then I guess, you know, it's a kind of a fly by the seat of your pants experience then, because you know, we did get all the stuff that we wanted to shoot. We obviously had to be really careful about how we shot it. We had to, you know, new protocols were coming in all the time about what you can do and what you can't do in terms of social distancing. Is this appropriate? Isn't it appropriate? So it was a current affairs commission, and you know, we were all given a special kind of dispensation letter so that we could, you know, that people that needed to move around could move around. So we had about probably about 9 people shooting across the country. And then we had the biggest team ever of people sitting in their pajamas at their kitchen tables, producing, and you know, then as the material came in, we had a huge system of people who were watching all the UGC footage that you know, that the great British public had sent in. So, you know, in answer to the question, did everybody watch the material? Was all that material watched? The answer is yes. So we had, you know, what was really, I think for me, what was really lovely was that, you know, we're a little company, but we knew that we needed a lot of people. We needed to throw a lot of people at this over the weekend. And, you know, it came at a time when, you know, lots of people had been laid off, lots of people had lost 6-month contracts. You know, lots of people had been told that they, you know, they had 2 weeks to go. And actually then, you know, we were phoning people up and saying, do you want to come and work for an absolutely bonkers weekend? And, you know, people were like, yeah, that sounds great. You know, so it was lovely for the production, you know, for the factual production, you know, sort of community in Leeds and in Yorkshire. So we had lots and lots of people who were working through the night, looking at this footage, you know, trying to assess, you know, the kind of the different categories. So we had lots of different categories of, you know, silly, cooking, breakfast, you know, whatever it was, Joe Wicks. So, you know, we exercising, whatever it was. And, you know, so we had loads of people sort of putting things in the right boxes. And then we were then making decisions about what we were actually going to put into the edit. Because, of course, for me, you know, in a situation like that, you know how easily you can get bogged down in an edit. And so we, in terms of managing the edit, we decided that we had we had a team of 6 editors going, you know, sort of passing the baton on through the weekend. I decided that I was going to go to the edit, and then my colleague Brian Woods, who's my friend and exec, he came up and he came into the edit with me. So there were 2 of us actually in the edit, and then an army of people processing all this vast amount of material and really helping us. So, you know, when we look back at the sort of the stories of the weekend, it's just, you know, so lovely and so funny to you know, hear everybody's experience. And, you know, we had the most hilarious kind of photo kind of gallery at the end of the weekend of burnt sausages and burnt chips and cats under laundry baskets, and, you know, people falling asleep in front of their laptops at 3 o'clock in the morning because they, you know, they'd been logging so much. So you know, so it was an incredible sort of collaborative experience. And I think in terms of you know, how you manage that amount of material and what you put into the edit, so that was the kind of the really scary bit, of course, is we were editing on Avid, and we had material coming from all over the country. You know, we had to get to post houses. Post houses had to open because they weren't open, so they had to open for us so that we could then upload the footage quickly and get it back to the edit quickly. Then, of course, you have to download it and down convert it and convert it into Avid. So actually, my probably my stickiest moment was at about 1 o'clock on Friday morning, where I'd had a team of editors all day. You know, I had this great game plan for how the edit was going to go. And by 1 o'clock on Friday morning, I'd say we probably had about 20% of the stuff that we needed in the edit. And, you know, you can imagine at that point, you just, you know, it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't, were we going to make a good film? It was just, you know, we're not going to make a film here because we're just not going to be able to get it into the edit in time. So that was really scary. But actually, you know, we had you know, a team of producers then who were kind of looking after sections for me and overseeing different bits. And, you know, the team of editors that we had were absolutely fantastic. And, you know, it was a really, you know, it's one of those films that's an incredibly bonding experience as you're all charging around like lunatics trying to work out, you know, who's going to do this bit, who's going to do that bit. And, you know, it's obviously, you know, it's an interesting experience. It's not an incredibly considered experience because you're like, right, okay, we've got to get part 1 down. And of course, we've got to get it to the lawyers. We've got to get it legaled. We've got to get, you know, compliance to have a look at it. You know, so you've got all of those deadlines. So we had deadlines all the way through the weekend that we had to hit. of right, okay, now, you know, we need to see this, we need to see this, we need to see this. So it was, yeah, it was a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, you talk there about it being a collaborative experience, and I think it's no surprise to anybody who knows you and your company that people were willing to come in and help and do that, even though their own situation had changed. But even though it was collaborative, and collaborative with the people who were sending in the clips as well,
Yeah.
there still seemed to be an integrity to the program, an authorial integrity to it. Was that you and Brian in the editing suite, or was that something that came about through that collaborative
Now,
process?
I think to be fair, I think I had a really good game plan. So I think we, you know, as I say, you know, we had a shopping list as a team. We brainstorm, what do we need in this film? So there were sort of certain things that we really wanted to not shy away from. So of course we didn't want to shy away from the fact that people were dying, and people are dying, and we didn't want to shy away from the fact that, you know, how on earth are we going to get the tone right? And so for me as a director, that was a really important thing, was that, you know, how do you move from trying to figure out how you're going to address the fact that, you know, that Friday 2 nurses died, and how are we going to reflect that, and then move to, you know, people buying loads of booze at 6 o'clock because it's Friday and they want to go, you know, they've had the briefing. So you know, we worked very, very hard to get some key things. So we knew we wanted, you know, we wanted a supermarket. We wanted to reflect the fact that, you know, people on the front line weren't just the NHS. So the guy who was in Cost Cutter in Boston Spa, you know, Neil was an absolute hero. He one of my members of staff lives in Boston Spa. She went in and said, do you want to do it? And explained what it was. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. That's great. It's really important. And of course, Neil was, you know, an absolute kind of, you know, linchpin of the film. And so for me, once I knew that he was prepared to do it, and he said, look, I'm working all the hours there are, so I'm opening up and I'm closing. So, you know, you've got moments, haven't you? So I knew, for example, that I could go back to the supermarket throughout the day. And then again, we worked really hard to try and work out how we were going to do the fact that people were dying, and we managed to get that wonderful lady in Marsden. Again, that was a connection of somebody who was on our team, and she said, I think it's really important that I do this. And of course, you know, I think that was one of the most moving sequences in the film, was, you know, her talking about the fact that, you know, she would still put on her uniform, and you know, she was still going to do all the normal things that she would do for somebody, even if she was doing it on her own. So, you know, again, so that was a huge moment just in terms of that week in the run up to the Friday, because we knew that we'd got her. So I knew I had planned in my head, I had a rough plan of when I had a rough plan of when I was going to put things in. So I knew that I was going to try and do the funeral part in part 3, and then we would go to the 5 o'clock briefing, and then we would be able to move off from that. So I knew we had these building blocks, and so I had a shape in my head. Unfortunately, it was only in my head. So that was the tricky thing, was then trying to, you know, get it out of my head. And one of our producers said, if only we could talk to Anna for long enough to get out of her head what we need to know. Yeah, so, you know, we had, and that's where the balance of the UGC footage and the stuff that we filmed, I think, worked really, really nicely. So, you know, we had those moments. We decided, obviously, that we were going to use news footage. The story of the song was extraordinary, actually, because I had in my head that I wanted to do a song at the end of the film. And I wanted to, and so for about, you know, since we actually knew we got the production, we were figuring out between ourselves, you know, what song shall we do? And we couldn't decide on a song. And, you know, we knew that we were going to have the ukulele scene in Otley, and they were going to play Stand By Me. So I'd said, well, why don't we just do Stand By Me? And, you know, then lots of people said, oh, we can't do that because we're not allowed to stand next to anyone. So, so we didn't do that. And then we got to the Thursday night before the Friday, and I just said, okay, look, let's leave it. We haven't got time to do this now. We'll just have to leave it. And then all through the night on Thursday night, I was sort of just, you know, annoyed because I just thought it'd be such a lovely way to end the film. And that's how I'd sort of had it in my head. And then on Friday morning, I've got lots of friends who are musicians, and I just phoned up somebody and I said, what song would you do? And he said, well, we've been singing Lean on Me. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I listened, I looked at the words, I listened to it, and I said, okay, let's do that. And then I said, can you help me? He said, yes. And so he laid down a track, and then we put that up on the website, and then we tweeted out and we said, please, can you sing this? So we got lots of people singing Lean on Me. And then, I don't know what time it was, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, someone came in and just said, Anna, Bill Withers has just died. And I was like, oh my, how could we do, it was one of those just, moments where you think, right. And then I was thinking, should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? And everyone was like, of course we should do it. So, that the end sequence was just, again, and I planned all that end sequence. So we knew we had, lots of moments. We had the illusionists, in where were they? They were in Corby, so we had the illusionists on the roundabout, and then we had the saxophonist. So, we knew we had little moments that we could then put all sorts of other things around. So, so it was, just absolutely extraordinary experience, really.
Yeah, what I'm getting a sense of here, Anna, is that and what you're known with your company is relationships. This might have been about coronavirus, and as you said yourself, you do films that go into some dark and necessary places, but they're all based on developing relationships with people. And it feels like even with this, even though you had that very short period of time, it was relationships. A PD over here knew that, somebody knew that person, you knew a musician. It's those relationships and that are critical to the effectiveness of getting this program done and other programs. But also, isn't that what coronavirus is actually about? It's about us renegotiating our relationships with each other, but actually reinforcing how important those relationships are.
I mean, I think it was interesting about the reaction to the film. I mean, so many people contacted us, and so many people, somebody from Channel 4, very senior person in Channel 4, emailed me and just said, I watched it with my family, and, thank you. It just totally, it was almost like a cathartic process for us as a family. And we laughed and we cried. And, and actually in the edit, we laughed and we cried. There were some moments where actually I couldn't speak when I was trying to explain to somebody what I wanted them to do. And I was so choked up because I was so moved by whatever little bit we were cutting. And I think that actually I think what was amazing was it really did capture, the emotion of what people are going through. We did laugh and we did cry when we were making that film. And that's what people did when they watched it. I think I don't know. I mean, the tone, I'm really pleased that we got the tone right, because I think it could have been very garish, and, it didn't feel like a garish film. It felt like there were lots of funny moments, lots of absolutely adorable moments. That little girl talking about, who are you? I'm the Prime Minister. What's the Prime Minister's name? Boris Johnson, and she was only about 2.5. And, I mean, I think the reaction on Twitter was incredible. People were just, I think it just really captured something, didn't it?
It did. I think it got the tone absolutely right. It captured a particular moment, and it's just an inevitable question: is there a thought of doing a follow-up with the same people?
Well, we've pitched it, Fiona. Unfortunately, we haven't got anywhere. So we were it was funny for me, actually. It's a process of childbirth for me. It's like, you give birth, you it's horrendous at the time, and then you come out and go, oh, that was great, I'll do it all over again. So, very quickly we'd said we'll do it. We wanted to do it every month during lockdown. We would have done it, but the channel didn't want to do that. So that's fine. So
well, maybe sometime. Maybe
another time.
What next
Yeah.
for you and Candour when you come out of this?
Well, we're still working hard. So we've just got another commission for BBC One. So we're about to go and make a film in the Bradford maternity unit about how maternity services are coping in COVID. So we're doing that with Stacey Dooley. And then we are, you know, like I imagine everyone else in the region, we're desperately trying to save all the work that we've done pre-lockdown to, you know, save we had a whole sort of tranche of commissions that have had to be put on hold. So we're desperately trying to make sure that we don't lose those. And, you know, we want to, you know, I think for all of us, it's a worrying time, isn't it? Because I think, you know, budgets are going to be cut, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Certainly, I think for the next year and a half for production companies, you know, how are we going to cope with, you know, budgets that are going to be very, very reduced, you know, because of the situation that the broadcasters are finding themselves in. So I think it's definitely a challenging time. But I feel for us, you know, we are a little company, and you know, we're quite agile. So I think, and also we're all very skilled. So actually, as a team, we're very good at just saying, right, you go produce that, you go do that, you go shoot that, and you know, because we're quite lean, we're able to do lots of the jobs ourselves. That you know, we're just sort of able to adapt to whichever production is coming in. So, and that's certainly what happened on that production. You know, we one of our editors actually came down. He was really ill the week before we were due to go into the edit, and he just said, I can't come into the edit. You know, but I still, you know, then he phoned me and he said, no, I'm all right, I still want to be involved. And so, you know, we were literally kind of, you know, driving drives backwards and forwards to his house, wiping them down, putting them in, wiping them down, coming back, you know. So yes, it was a lot of jobs that you wouldn't expect to have to do, we had to do.
Yeah, well, Anna, I think we're coming towards the end of this now, and I think it's fair to say that the TV industry is very resilient, very, as you say, full of skilled people, and whatever happens, I think, you know, telly will come out, telly will survive, telly will come through. We'll just adapt, we'll just find our way through it, because it's more than just a job. It's a commitment, it's a mission, it's a vision, it's whatever. And I know you'll be at the centre of that, because you always have been. And you've done programmes with a very small budget, you've done with bigger budgets, and so I know that you'll be able to adapt and agile. You've got a good team around you. So congratulations on the success of that programme, and I think you caught the mood just right at that time. Look forward to seeing a follow-up. I really do. If I see Channel 4, I'll say something.
Say something to them for me. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have him, but I'll try. But thank you, and thank you for being the first person to be a part of this.
Thank you, Fiona. I've really enjoyed it.